It's that time of year when all of the predictions start to come out about home prices in 2024. Are they going to go up? Or is 2024 the year they come crashing down? Well, much depends on who you ask. So stick with me as we're going to dive into all of the latest information, and I'm going to let you know what I think home prices are going to do in 2024 in this video. Hi, this is Andrew with the Andrew Smith team here in Frisco, Texas. And the future of home prices has been on the mind of a lot of potential buyers that I've been talking to. And it's understandable, really, when you think about it. I mean, home prices reached record highs, mortgage rates soared, and affordability is the lowest it has been in a long time. So, who wants to buy a home if they think home prices are about to fall? And the question is, no one. But with that in mind, here's what some of the latest pricing reports have to say about home prices this next year. So Redfin is predicting that nationally home prices are going to fall 1%. They're actually forecasting that they're going to rise 0.8% here in Frisco. Realtor.com believes the median home price will fall by 1.7% next year. Zillow is forecasting a relatively mild 0.2% decline nationally, but a little bit more at a 1.6% decline here in Frisco. On the Home Price Expectation Survey, which is a survey of over 100 different economists and real estate industry experts that's published by Pulsomics, is forecasting home prices to increase by 2.1%. So the question is, who do you believe? Well, let's go back to last year. I don't know if you recall, but the forecasts at the end of 2022 about the 2023 housing market were pretty dire. The general consensus was that the supply of homes would surge, the buyer demand would absolutely evaporate and disappear, and home prices would fall by up to 20%. Now, if you happen to be a subscriber to this channel and you saw any of my videos from last year, you're going to know that I didn't call for that. And obviously now, as we look back, we know it didn't happen. So no, I don't have some sort of special talent for forecasting the future, but after being in this business for over 20 years, you can kind of gauge what's going on. And to be honest with you, the ingredients just weren't there that are needed for the sort of price declines or the crash or the bubble burst that people were talking about. And one of the things about that is it's so easy to get lost in charts and graphs that you actually lose sight of how people think, what consumer behavior is. So let me explain, right? Pricing in general of any product or service comes down to the relationship between supply and demand. High supply, low demand, falling prices, right? Vice versa. High demand, low supply, rising prices. It really is that simple. Yes, there are a number of different variables on a lot of things that impact supply and impact demand. But at its simplest form, it's that relationship between supply and demand. Now, supply was supposed to increase last year. That was what was forecast, but it didn't happen. So the question is, why didn't it happen? Well, think about it. The vast majority of mortgaged homeowners in this country have a rate less than 5%. The bulk of those are below 4%. So if you own a home and you've got a mortgage locked in at 3% or 3.5% or 4%, and rates suddenly jump to 7, 7.5, 8, are you really going to sell? Unless you absolutely have to? The answer is no, you're not. And they didn't. So as a result, as those mortgage rates started to climb, the people that had been thinking about selling that didn't really have to, flat out didn't. Those homes came off the market, and hence supply fell. So even though You take a look at the fact that the number of transactions has been down, and buyer demand as rates went up definitely plummeted. Supply fell too, and it fell enough to kind of keep things in balance overall. So, looking at that, sometimes in order to know where we're going to go in the future, you need to take a look into the past and look at what happened leading up to this. So, bear with me for just a minute here. Promise I'll make this quick and I won't be drawn out on that. But in the early 2000s, the new home builders ramped up construction rapidly to keep up with ever growing demand. And then the market crashed. And it's important to know that when the market crashed in 2007, 2008, depending on where in the country you lived, it didn't crash as a result of housing directly, it crashed as a result of mortgages. In order to keep feeding the frenzy, new mortgage programs kept coming out that never should have existed. You could virtually fog a mirror and get a mortgage. So all kinds of mortgages were being issued to people that flat out didn't qualify to buy a house. It became a house of cards. And when that mortgage industry collapsed, it was the lead domino. Buyer demand evaporated virtually overnight, but the new home builders had been ramping up. So you had the classic ingredients necessary for a price correction, for a crash: really high supply and really low demand. Prices had nowhere to go but down. And let's be honest, the builders got burned. There's a number of home builders that went out of business. Other companies merged to try and create efficiency of costs. And the ones that did survive experienced massive losses during that time frame. And to be honest with you, they never really recovered. They never got back to where they were. In fact, we didn't build there was not as many new construction homes in this country built until 2021 compared to what there was in 2006, 2007. So we have been massively, massively underbuilt for years and years and years. So let's fast forward current times. The pandemic, what happened? Well, the pandemic was supposed to crush housing. It was supposed to cause everything to crash once again. And guess what? It didn't happen. It actually was the beginning of the spark, which caused housing to absolutely take off as remote work came into play and all of these other different factors. And as the government rolled out programs to try and improve the economy, get things going, mortgage rates plummeted to the lowest level they had ever been. So, what did that do to demand? It's like throwing gasoline on the fire. You had these people that wanted to buy in the first place, and now all of a sudden you had ultra cheap money. So demand skyrocketed. And what did we have? We didn't have supply. So we go back to that supply and demand again. So undersupplied through the roof demand. And what was the result? We know what the result was: multiple offers, bidding wars, an absolute frenzy that took place, and home prices soared. So now we get into the beginning of 2022. The Fed openly admitted it needed to cool the economy. It wanted to slow down housing because housing was one of the things really driving inflation with the runaway home prices. And they did. They absolutely did. They were able to pour water on the housing market. And what we've seen in 2023, unlike the big crash that people thought was going to happen, we've actually seen balance return. So even though demand was lower, supply was lower. We saw some balance come back into the market. And how that played out really depended on where you live in the country. I mean, as we know, here in the Frisco area, we have new construction everywhere. So we didn't have the supply constraints as other areas of the country did that have actually seen prices increase this year way more than what was expected. Now, going forward and looking specifically at home prices here in Frisco in 2024, I'm going to be honest with you. It's impossible to really know what all of 2024 is going to look like. but I can tell you what's going to happen in the first quarter. So how do we do that? Well, it's really quite simple. So right now, if we look at the homes for sale and we look at the price of those homes, the median list price of all homes for sale in Frisco right now is 719,000, and that has been fairly consistent, 705, 722 for the past couple of months. Now, according to the latest sales data, homes have been selling for anywhere between 96 and 97% of their original list price. So the original price they got listed at, the discount on those homes on average has only been 3 or 4%. And depending upon price range, homes are selling within 42 to 77 days of going on the market. That means that the homes going up for sale now and the homes that are on the market are likely going to go under contract sometime in January or early February, and they will close sometime late February or March. You just play the math. If they're selling for between 96 and 97% of list price, that means that the median sales price of those homes in the February-March timeframe is going to be between 690 and 700,000 approximately. Now, if we go back and look at the data to where sales prices were here in Frisco in February, March of this year, 2023, they were exactly the same. So virtually no change, which means by that time frame, year over year, prices will have been absolutely flat. Now, if you'd like to look at this information in more detail for yourself, in the description below, I've got a link to the Frisco market report that I'm pulling this from. I send that report out to people each and every week. It's a great way to keep an eye on what is happening in the local market. And from that report, you can actually search any city or zip code in the area, or in fact, the country, if you would like. So what happens after the first quarter, though? Where do we go from there? And, to be honest with you, it really depends on what happens with mortgage rates. So over the last couple of weeks, reports have come out that new mortgage applications have jumped in response to the decline in mortgage rates we've been experiencing. They've gone from just over 8% to the very low sevens right now, which has caused people to start to move back into the market. And if that continues, I expect that many of the people that put their buying plans on hold this past year are going to jump back into the market in 2024. Now, one thing that we have here in Frisco and the surrounding areas, as I mentioned just a minute ago, that you don't have in other areas of the country, is a great deal of new construction. And that new construction has been bringing much needed supply. If we didn't have that, then we would start to see prices go up even more as demand would outpace supply. Now, I don't think everyone's going to jump back into the market at the same time, but I do expect that we're going to see demand increase through the first quarter, especially as we get into the traditional busy spring season. And again, it really depends on what happens with supply. I do think we'll see an uptick in resale homes coming on the market as well, because if those mortgage rates keep coming down, it's going to start to make sense for some of those people to make the move that they have been putting off. So anyway, I hope this information has been helpful to you, kind of gives you a few insights on where I see things going as we roll into the new year in just a few weeks from now. If you have any questions whatsoever or a situation that you'd like to discuss in more detail, in the link below or in the description below, I do have a link to my calendar. I invite you to go ahead and schedule a call. And if you have other questions or want some additional information and have found value in this video, I do invite you to hit that thumbs up, subscribe to this channel. And if you're looking for a home currently, some of the best deals are in new construction. And I have got a couple of those deals coming up for you in one of the following videos coming up next.